Hello, y'all. Thank you for coming to my channel, Redeemed Carnivore. I am here today with Chris. She is in the Instagram world, and she has really inspired me with some of her posts and stuff. So I thought I'd get her to come on and talk. And hey, we have nothing planned, so it's just one of those chats, get to know each other, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you for coming onto the channel today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite and getting to know you.
Yes. Okay, well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, or whatever you would like to share first off.
Sure thing. Um, well, you've seen on some of my posts, I have a bit of a food addiction that, kind of generations of family didn't always know how to handle certain situations. So they might choose one thing or another to uh, calm their emotions or whatever they needed.
Right.
Just kind of looking up the family tree. There's been a few generations of various addictions. So, but fortunately, as opportunities come along, people learn how to get out of the addiction.
Right.
And so I've been learning how to get out of my food problems, and I had a lot of health issues, and personally found that I call it ketovore. So because it's not
Yeah.
super strict, I
Yeah.
have meat with seasonings and
I like that.
yeah, and the occasional vegetable.
Right.
Um, but I also, with having the health problems I have, sometimes, yeah, I'll have that piece of cake, but try not to get crazy with it as
Right.
I'm new to the whole, whoops, having some glitches. Um, just being new to the whole carnivore world,
Yeah.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and your story sounds a lot like mine. Growing up, as you may have uh watched my videos, and people on here, my story is very similar to yours, to where there was addictions in the family. I grew up with alcoholic dad. I grew up with a bunch of childhood trauma from that. And then it just, it morphed from there to where, I struggled with alcohol, and then it became food. So, you know, as well as like then, because in the world, food addiction is really kind of taboo. It's really, it's like, well, you know, we'll just eat one or two of it and leave it alone.
Right.
And as you well know, those of us that are not moderators, we are abstainers, you
Yeah.
can't do that.
No.
So it's a thing up to where, then you have to go, okay, what's wrong with me? And you know it's nothing really wrong with you. It's just when you learn, hey, I can't handle this, so I'm just going to have to cut it off. And then, years of the food addiction and what it does to your body, then you have to deal with that. As I'm like you, I'm struggling with the body thing. Um, just recently, I did a video on colonostomy, and got the results back.
Oh,
Yeah, precancerous.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
goodness. Yeah,
but thankfully they removed it. And
praise God.
right, but it's a thing up to where, because of my previous eating, how I ate, that impacted me. Now it was very small and they removed it. But if I was still eating the standard American diet,
Right.
As you can imagine, and those of us watching, what that would have meant.
Yeah, it just the sugar feeds it.
It does. It really does. And a lot of people don't want to see that the sugar feeds it. They say, oh, well, it's meat, it's red meat.
Yeah.
No, not
No.
red meat. Red meat is what has helped me, because I've been sober for almost 2 years.
Mhm.
And if it had not been for me eating for a year of strict carnivore, then I think my results would have been worse.
Yeah, yeah. I understand that, having a similar situation. It was a 3 millimeter polyp that was precancerous that I had.
That was my size.
Yeah. And yeah, the doctor even said they almost missed it, which I'm glad he found it, got it.
Right.
And since then, all the tests have been fine. But that's, it wakes you up, that God's sovereign in his plan for our lives, for our bodies, and whatever we got to go through. Um, and that gives us hope to keep going on the path that we're on.
Right.
And there's more than one of us, variations to our stories.
Right.
But, I think that's the cool thing, is that we're not alone in it. You can go to support groups and you might have one or two that are pretty close to your own story.
Right.
But everybody in that group might be a little more different, but when you have hope, there's a bigger plan. It's not all about you, and you can have the good days, you can have the bad days, you can just, you get up, you pray, which I appreciate that in you, that it's not what we've done, it's what we're supposed to do now.
Right.
What's in today and what will be tomorrow isn't really our business, because we're not there yet.
My husband, he has wisdom that's hidden, and every once in a while those little nuggets will come out. But I was asking him the other night about a situation, and I asked him, was he worried about it or whatever, what he thought. And I'm one of those people that worry about things 5 years from now.
Okay.
I'm trying to work on that.
Right.
But
right.
he's like, no. And I'm looking at him going, what's wrong with you? Why are you not worried? He goes, it hadn't happened yet. He said, I can't deal with the future yet because the future's not here. He said, I can deal with right now, what's happening. Right. And I stopped for a second and he looked at me, he says, your wheels are turning. I said, yeah. And I said, because, that's one thing that I do appreciate about him, is because he doesn't worry. He doesn't get upset because he focuses on, it's like his little blinders are on, and he's like, okay, whatever God has for me tomorrow or the next day or 3 months from now, and I'm like, I'm really trying to work on that. But because we used to hear the thing of, okay, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Right.
And I'm going, oh, we've got to have something in plan for 5 years. So then it starts going 90 miles an hour. It's like, oh, so, but you're absolutely right. Whereas God has a plan for us, and sometimes our plan doesn't work out. But, sometimes it does by us asking him.
Right.
Case in point, when I went for my procedure,
Right.
there was 2 things I was nervous about. One was the IV, because I've had some bad IVs.
Yeah.
I was mobile phlebotomy for a little while, so I was sticking people. So I'm just like,
Okay.
look. If y'all can't get that big old vein, just give it to me and let me do it, okay?
Right.
But then the second one was the anesthesia, because I've had a bad experience with that as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I prayed ahead of time. I'm like, God, go before me, work this out. You know, I'm hesitant, I'm nervous, whatever. Y'all, God answers prayers, and in the smallest things, okay?
Right.
He knew I was nervous, and it was like I wanted to get nervous, wanted to, but it was just like, and you know what I'm talking about? It's like I just couldn't. I couldn't get upset. I couldn't get nervous. It just. So the woman comes in, does the IV, hits it right off the bat. I
Oh,
barely feel it. Okay. It's like them drawing blood. Okay. And I'm just like, I'm good. She walks out of the room. I go, and I'm saying out loud, and there's nothing but a sheet. And I'm going, I don't care who hears. Thank you, Jesus, for that.
yeah.
Then the anesthesiologist comes in, and he's talking to me and all like this. And I tell him I'm nervous. He goes, don't worry. There's this stuff that we're going to give you. It has anti-nausea already built in it. I went,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Lord.
That stuff is wonderful.
Yeah. No side effects, no nothing. It was awesome. The worst thing about the colonoscopy was the prep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that stuff was nasty.
Yes. I don't know anyone who likes that one.
Ugh, nasty.
Yeah.
So, but all right, let's kind of switch gears here a little bit. How long have you been, can I say sober? Is that one
Sure.
of the, how long have you been sober?
So I would say I've about a year.
Awesome.
I've been, not perfect as far as things go, but I really about a year been working at the ketovore style, and trying to get routines, trying to get good habits, learning, when on the weekends, if I can, we'll cook our main meats for the week. So I can just grab for my lunch, head off to work. When we go to different restaurants or different get-togethers, kind of scope out the menu to know what I can order.
Yeah.
Or take something with me if it's if it's not at a restaurant, just kind of someone's house or some kind of fellowship. And honestly, even sometimes I can just skip the meal.
Right.
Introduce a little intermittent fasting.
Right.
If choices just aren't, if they're going to cause more harm than good.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds a lot like me. Congratulations on the year. And, I think everybody's, what their version is different. Mine is completely strict carnivore. There is nothing but meat and salt. I don't even do spices, because I found that, you got to be careful of spices.
Right.
But now, and some people can handle the keto deal. Right now, my gut is what I'm really focusing on, is trying to heal it. And right now it just can't handle it.
Right.
And, one thing I wanted to tell people, that if you go on her Instagram, is the meat loaf that she did. And it has 3 different meats. And I was like, I never thought about that, but it's layered. And I'm just like, oh, that's cool. You get a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Trying to get flavor so that my husband and son can enjoy, or guest, whoever, so I just try a little mix and match, a little ground beef, ground turkey, a little sausage in there. And because as a lifestyle, when I first started, I was real strict. I actually had a problem with candidus, and it came up in a blood test, which didn't even know it could. But we're doing food sensitivity testing.
Yes.
Because it just seemed like everything was making me sick. So in that testing, when we went over the results, the doctor said, "Oh, your candidus is off the charts." And that's when I asked, I said, "Well, okay, so what do I need to do here?" And she said, "Well, the less sugar, the better."
Yeah. Yeah.
So my friend had been telling me about carnivore, and I thought, okay, well, now's the time. I got to clear this up.
Right.
And so went real strict in the beginning. But when I say that, I did take time to get off of the standard American diet,
Right.
because I had heard a lot about keto flu.
Oh, it's
And
real.
oh, yes. So I thought, no, I can't afford, just being nauseous at all is like my worst of anything. So I did,
Yes,
get off
me too.
get off the packaged stuff, get off the any sweets, get off fruits, get off root vegetables, and then other vegetables. And so I just kind of did work a little slow, so that way I could avoid that being sick. And that took me
Right.
probably 2 months from start to, strict meat. And I'd have water. I had a little problem with the coffees and the teas at first. Just the caffeine on
Right.
my system wasn't ready,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
say. And so started working through, and candidus cleared right up. I was told to wait 3 months before having any blood work done again, because the numbers can be all crazy.
Right.
Um,
Right.
And I had asked my doctor if she knew about some of the carnivore doctors online that we've watched. And they said, "Oh, yeah, very reputable." So I watched them to have good advice to not cause more problems
Right.
than I already
Right.
have.
Right.
And so, which was a blessing that these different doctors have been out there helping us.
Yeah.
Because, I can't fly across the country to get help all the time.
Right. Right.
So, but the idea that just, well, whatever little natural sugars in meat was the only bit I was having.
Yeah.
Everything cleared up. The weight started coming off. I probably at first was so satisfied with the amount of meat I had, I was not eating enough. That was a
Right.
mistake I made.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hear it's kind of a common one. So
Mhm.
fortunately, get back on YouTube, look it up one of the doctors, and they have some advice. And so I didn't feel like I had to invent the wheel. So
Right. Right.
and everybody else had shared their trials, their struggles through it. And it was so amazingly easy. I lost 40 pounds,
Awesome.
which I was elated. I mean, my boss had to tell me to go get some new pants because they were just hanging on me.
That's the best kind of thing, is go get new pants because they're falling off of you.
Exactly. So, I did enjoy some shopping for a while. And I didn't want to go too crazy. We have some nice little thrift shop by work that I could go on a break and just pick out a piece or two. But what happened, I did let some negative come into my head. And, oh, when you return to normal eating, how are you going to
Yeah.
keep the weight?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I let that get into my head.
Yeah.
I did not pray it out. And so I was listening to some other doctors, and, oh, you need to reincorporate. You need to reincorporate.
Mm-hmm.
During the holidays was the most wrong time of the year to try that.
Right.
But so I did gain back a bit, not all. Thankfully, I feel like God got a hold of me and said, no, this is your addiction showing up.
Right.
You
Right.
can't just do a little. You're not, and one of my friends calls it being a normie with food. I'm not a normie with food. So I need to stick to the meat.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, even in this naturopath test of mine, it showed that my system needed, it said 40% animal protein.
Hmm.
And I didn't
Hmm.
even know that could be found in a blood test. But I know it's more 100%.
Right. Well, and talking about addiction and it sneaking back in, I really, it's more of a mindset thing
Mhm.
because, and you're talking about, things get in your brain. Absolutely. Um, with me, there was several issues going on in my life, um, that I allowed to take over. And, it was just one little bite here, one little piece here. And then all of a sudden, the addiction is just roaring back in full force. And
Right.
I'm standing in the pantry again, you know, looking around and hiding and shoving food in my mouth. That was my thing, was I'd hide in the pantry and I would make sure that nobody was coming and I'd shove all this stuff in my mouth. You know, but and I tell people, I don't know if you've heard this, and I don't know if people, watching has heard this, that I tell the lowest point that I got, one of the lowest points was when I was a caregiver for a lady, and she had stuff on her plate. And of course, I was cleaning up her stuff, and I ate the stuff off her plate in the garbage.
Oh,
And people look at me and go, "Oh, how could," when you're in the middle of that addiction, it is just like heroin addict, cocaine addict, alcoholic. You will go to any point to get your next fix, whatever that may be, whatever your addiction is,
yeah, yeah.
because you don't have the tools at that moment to process what's going on.
Right.
And I've told my family members, it's like I have a family that is still eating standard American diet. And I told them, I said, I wish I could turn off the part to where I care,
Yeah.
because I see them hurting themselves. I see them going down that path that I went down. I have a family member that is very, very young that is a mirror image of me
Okay.
in the height of my addiction. So I'm like, I wish I could turn off the part to where I care, because it hurts so bad when you see family, or you see even small children, because it is pushed on the children, the standard American diet, the sugar, I call it crap. That's what it is. It's pushed on them so hard. And sugar is so addictive that they just get entangled in it without really even realizing it until it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole marketing of the grocery stores is set up from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave to catch your eye and pull you to packaged, shiny,
Right,
colorful, fake.
right,
No, I
right.
mean, like our world, right?
Oh, yeah.
They think if it's uh, pleasing to that, well, it started way back before then,
Right, right.
pleasing
Yeah,
to the eye,
yeah.
and you know, it tastes good, then it must be. And that search that a lot of folks have that leads into addiction is that they should be feeling good all the time,
Right.
and that, nothing should be hard. To me, it's been a huge lie that life should be only do what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I read on somebody else's, I can't remember if it was honestly a post or a book. I do like to read, so I get some things mixed up. But that there's two kinds of hard. It's hard to be sick. It's hard to not move. It's hard to, your budget, spending your money on all this junk food. And, you have stuff in the cabinet, like you said, or in a drawer, or you keep it in your car or in your purse or wherever you keep it. And it's, you almost think of the spy movies where they've got gadgets everywhere to help them
Right.
do the job.
Yeah.
But to me, I guess I just think the wave of hard, that this hunger is going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that long to wait out that hunger pain or that craving.
Right.
I heard someone say not too long ago, there's like that maybe a half an hour of pleasure or an hour of pleasure in that addiction, to where you, from the eye thinking about it, wanting it, entertaining it, enjoying it, and then you feel terrible the rest of the time.
Right. Right. And even, as an addict, I think you always struggle. I don't think that, and I refer back to Paul and his thorn in the side, to where God said, nope, my grace is sufficient. And I'm going, okay, Lord, because I quit alcohol, I quit cigarettes, no problem, but the sugar,
Right.
And even the other day, there was stuff going on. I'm transporting grandkids, and I'm almost taking care of 2 households and everybody, and it just sometimes gets up to here.
Uh-huh.
Even and I pray, I'm like, okay, Lord, but still sometimes so the addiction sometimes wants to rear its ugly head. And I'm standing in the kitchen, and it's the thoughts like,
Yeah.
oh, well, this will make you feel better, or just have one, or what. And I'm going, no, because that's going to make me, number one, go back to day one all over again.
Right.
Number two, you're going to have to fight with the cravings and all of the hunger all over again.
Right.
No, I'm not doing that. So in a few minutes, it just passed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't give in.
Right.
Now, I personally can't speak for anybody else. I also think it's God going, okay, here's a temptation, but my grace and my mercy is going to be enough for you to overcome it.
Yeah.
You are an overcomer. You can get past this.
Yeah. And I think that's where like you said, the temptation, that family, friends, they mean well, but they don't see, because it's not in the category of the common addiction.
Right.
That the scripture, I was reading about the heart being mentioned over 700 times in scripture. But it also, this little section, I didn't want to forget it, so I underlined it, that the heart is a seat of emotions. It includes our thoughts, desires, choices, beliefs, plans, and feelings. And to have it mentioned over 700 times. Proverbs 4:23 said, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. And that's where I think just practicing, learning, trusting, and having God guide that spring.
Mhm.
Because when I do it, I blow it. I do a terrible job of, I can't guide a spring anywhere.
You know, I can't even take care of myself sometimes, you know, so th- that is one thing that also that I'm trying to learn as well is I can't change anyone because I couldn't even change myself. God was the one that had to change me. I had to be willing to surrender my will to his and say, okay,
Right.
I can't do this. But you know, I think growing up, and you've mentioned this some in your post as well about narcissism and having family members or, you know, people that we are close to being narcissist. I have a
Mhm.
father who is a narcissist, and he's still living, he's still with me. And I have come to realize that I can't change him.
Yeah.
You know, I can pray for him. I can pray that God changes him, but God's the only one that can deal with him and change him. I can't.
Right. Right.
And there's some days I can't even deal with him because of the childhood issues and the, you know, the way it, if anybody knows what a narcissist is, then they know.
Yeah. And there's so many types out. That was one thing that was surprising to me, that because I used to think a certain personality, um if you were an addict of any kind, then you were automatically a narcissist. Um, but then I started seeing that, oh no, there's the narcissist who mirrors somebody
Mhm.
who wants what they have, they act like them to get on their good side, but ultimately it's to serve their own needs.
Right.
And then you have like a covert narcissist who super charming, you don't see it coming, and then all of a sudden you're not yourself anymore because
Mhm.
they've moved you in a way that's serving them.
Right.
And the malignant, where they just enjoy hurting people.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're mean, nasty. They can charm you to where you're depending on them and
Mhm.
then turn on you.
Right.
And in generations past, I don't know how these people were taught. I don't know exactly what they learned. Uh, but they weren't walking with God when they were doing these things, that's for sure.
Right.
Because you can't serve two masters.
Right.
And if you're serving self, you're not serving God.
Right.
It doesn't mean I didn't learn some of the behaviors just being taught them, but I definitely don't like them. And when I'm in my cravings and my addictions of just making myself feel good, how can I get this? How can I manipulate that? That's serving myself. That's that
Right.
narcissism coming out in me. And, I know later in scriptures it talks about in the end times, people will be lovers of themselves.
And
Well,
boy,
that's a
aren't they,
narcissist.
boy, aren't they now.
Yeah. And I fall just as much as anybody else does.
Hmm.
But and this is what I like about your post. It's the get back up,
Right. Right.
keep going. Um, we can't change anybody else, but ourselves can be submitted to God.
Right.
Our will, our wants, our desires, anything that we think, oh, if I just, well, I've heard if you say, if I just, you're just trying to justify,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
and it's just not going to work.
Nope.
Because,
Not at all.
God will let us go so far when we belong to Him. Um, and He'll take us down to where we need to be so that we are going to Him. And I
Right.
just think that's where addiction in itself can be a blessing, because it brings me to the end of me, and looking outside of me to God for that help. Because in my own, hey, if I could be tall, thin, and pretty, you know, would I rely on God? I don't know. But
Mm.
as it is, I'm short and a little round, and I need a lot of help.
I think that when you say that addiction can be a blessing, I know a lot of people are going, what? But I have found that to be true. Now, I haven't come to that conclusion just right quick. It's been a minute,
Right.
and sometimes I go, God, really? But I get to talk to people with addiction and or that is coming out of addiction, or they may be in the middle of it,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's the fact that this is what I get to do.
Yeah.
And, God has put a desire in me to do this because I've got another business. It's with doTERRA essential oils.
Oh
And
yeah.
I told them that one of my leaders, I told them that I have this channel and this is what I do and this is what I want to do. And she's like, wow. She's like, for the past 2 years, the world has had to endure, she said, addiction has just skyrocketed. And
Oh,
I said, yes. I said, because we didn't know how to handle all of this. And there's a lot of people that they didn't turn to God.
mhm.
They turned away from God instead because of various reasons. I mean,
Right.
but that now they may be stuck in the middle of it and go, what do I do? Who do I turn to? And us being stuck at home, well, food is right there.
Right.
And it's very easy to turn to. You can watch a commercial and you'll see 5 commercials talking about food. And then you're like, oh, that sounds good. Or, I am kind of hungry, and there you go.
Right. Right. Yeah, and the fact that there was the phrase that came out of the COVID-20, uh, people gained 20 pounds on average
Mhm.
that first year. And I have relatives, around different countries, and we email, and I got to know them, did the ancestry research, which was great. I had the time to do it, but it wasn't unique to our country. It was in other countries as well. This being trapped and eating and gaining, and some of them were real encouraging. I got out and I walked more, and I got out and I did, in their yard. They said they felt funny walking laps, but they walked laps in their yard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all the people who they found, or they prayed, or they were given ideas, um, they were grateful. And that gratitude, whatever our circumstances are, to me, I think that can only come from God, to be grateful.
Hmm.
Not that other people who don't believe in God aren't grateful, but I'd have to say myself, just in my own experience, because I can't speak for other people. I think gratitude has grown so much more when I have to, with my illness, pray to get out of bed, that, I can move my joints. Something doesn't lock up on me. I can work. I can drive. I can see. I can do a lot of things that illnesses take away.
Right.
And even with any illness, and, some people put addiction as a disease and some people don't. Um, to me, that's not a discussion that, I don't know. That's just an opinions either way. But if I need to rely on someone for my nourishment, for my strength, for my very breath, then I think I'm a little bit more happy, a little bit more grateful, even if anything and everything around me is total chaos.
Right. Right.
Uh, you get grateful for the little things
Hmm.
when the big things you used to take for granted.
Right. Well, and even, us in the 2 years in the world, I think there's a lot of people that have become more grateful now that we have a little bit more freedom. I tend to think that, they've gone back to the taking things for granted, to where when we first got some freedoms coming out of this Black Plague thing, you know, we were grateful just to be able to go outside, or to be able to just go to the grocery store, or, we started to get to know our neighbors,
Right.
and I think that God allows things to happen because goes through, nothing is allowed to go through without his hand,
Yeah.
without, him knowing about it and approving it. Now, that's the way I believe.
Right.
And so this Black Plague thing, there was good that came out of it because we were more aware of each other.
Right.
We were more aware of how our neighbor was doing. I saw people holding up signs to their neighbor across, maybe across the building. Hello, how are you doing? So where otherwise we would just go, okay, I've got to go to work and I ain't got time for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that God allowed that, but I think, then the more freedom we were allowed to have, and now the freedoms that we have, we've taken for granted. And so now it's like, well, forget our neighbor, forget, and we still have people suffering 2 years later,
Yes.
but we have forgotten about them. We have forgotten about the addict. We have forgotten about the homeless. We have forgotten about the child that needs food. We have forgotten about the child that's in sex trafficking, or that is being abused, or that, has nothing. We've forgotten about them.
Yeah. And a lot of the programs that were shut down, just even people to getting together to some of the places they came up with Zoom meetings and fellowshipping over the computer, which was great. Kind of like this is a similar idea that you're continuing on, to help people not be isolated. We were at the time, we've been in a lot of parent care. So checking on the seniors, checking on some of their friends, checking on, just waving down the street.
Right.
I mean, I hope in this kind of stop that we had around the world, people start seeing that, yeah, it's not about me all the time. There's something else going on. What is it? And my prayer is always that people get into the word, because we have a lot of it, and God's told us a lot.
Yes.
And if I'm not worried about me because God's got a hold of me, then I can help you.
Right.
Because
Right.
I'm not so worried about getting mine.
Right.
My hands are freer to say, hey, do you need a hand with that? Can I hold that door for you? Can I, and just be kind of manners of the old.
Right. Right.
That are lost.
Yeah.
People forgetting where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
we used to have respect for elders. We used to have respect for one another.
Right.
You said, excuse me, you said, please, you said, thank you. They even had a book, learning your P's and Q's.
Right. Yes. Yes. They had Miss Manners and Book of Manners or something. My granny had one of those, and it something about manners. It was a pretty thick book, and it was, all about manners and stuff, what ladies should do, and what gentlemen should do. And, and I'm just like, I'm trying to teach my grandkids that. And I'm just like, even going down the aisle of the grocery store, when somebody passes, you're supposed to, or if you need to get by, you say, excuse me.
Right, right.
I've had people not do that, and I look at them and go, excuse you. Like, hello, do you not have any manners?
Yeah, and it's hard. I don't know what all the agendas are in the public schools and in the colleges. But I see that the more that people think that they're independent, that they don't have to care about the person next to them, the sicker they're getting. And we started with talking with our food and the narcissism and the addiction, and it just, in society, we get sicker. When our heart gets darker, we get sicker.
Right.
And to me, what's on my heart always to share with people is, yeah, this may not be great. This may not be great. I might, have complained on this or that. But at the end of the day, there was good things. And those came from God. The sun came out, or the rain nourished, or, someone was kind and, let me go ahead, or someone else, they looked like they were going to rush. So yeah, I had plenty of time. Go ahead of me. That's fine.
Yeah.
And it just brightens up your day when you can reach out and just be kind too. Kind, not as in a religion, because I think kindness can be taken so extreme that there's no accountability.
Right.
If somebody hauls off and does something, they should be held accountable. There is that personal accountability that not everything is okay and I just smile and get walked on.
Right. Yeah, so, you have to set boundaries as well.
Yeah.
And I think that what I'm learning is boundaries are not restrictive. Boundaries are saying that you care enough about yourself that you're going to set a boundary. With narcissists, you have to set a boundary, and when you set that boundary, they're not going to like it and they're going to rebel.
Yeah.
But yet, when you set boundaries with people, you're letting them know, this is how I am respected. This is how I love myself. This is how you can love me, is by setting this boundary. Boundaries are not bad. Even God sets boundaries to where, and everybody goes, well, Christianity is so restrictive. No, it's freeing, because you don't have to try to, and I still have that mentality of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But if you rely on God and his boundaries, his boundaries are to keep you safe. His boundaries are because he loves you and he doesn't want any harm to come to you. So therefore, he sets boundaries just like you would with a child.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to run out into that traffic.
Right.
And that child will get hurt. And a lot of people, I think, also, we know that God loves us, wants to take care of us. And he also wants to take care of other people that we may not love so much.
Right.
And so bad things will happen.
Right.
And they want to immediately, well, see, God doesn't care. That isn't anything that's true at all. God does care, because that very thing that was bad, terrible, whatever, that may be the very bottom that person hit, like an addiction, to go to God. Right. God may use that circumstance to bring that person to him and draw them in close, drawing up, like, we don't have a lot of wells in our area, but when you're drawing up water, you're pulling it up, and the Holy Spirit, he draws the people to him.
Right.
And so bad circumstances, good circumstances, we don't see the whole picture. We see just a portion of it. But from God's side, he sees the whole thing. And that's where I say the addiction can be the blessing.
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
The shutdowns could be a blessing. Anything like that, it seems horrible, can become a blessing when your perspective changes and you're waiting on God and you're looking from his view, not your own. That's, we shut our eyes even sometimes.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Walking down the hallway at night, can't see a lot. But once your eyes adjust and your perspective changes, all of a sudden you see more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to me going, I see dimly now, but with God, I see brighter.
Right. Right. Well, our time is, we've had such a good time that our time has flown by.
It
And
certainly has.
but I thank you for coming on to my channel and talking. I have so enjoyed this and I have been encouraged by this. And y'all check out her Instagram. Now, what is your Instagram?
It is ketovore carb recovery _ Chris.
All right, check her out, y'all. And of course, y'all share this video with someone that you know, like it, comment. I'd love to have comments, discussions, whatever. My Instagram. I've also got Gmail. If anybody wants to talk to me, have a comment. It's redeemedcarnivore@gmail.com. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much.